Welcome to the Au. I'm your host, Beef Loaf. This show is being sponsored by our friends Punky's Pizza and Pasta, located 2600 South Wallace, my personal favorite eatery in the neighborhood. They have the best selection of pizzas and pastas as well as sandwiches and salads of any spot in Bridgeport. Currently, they have a terrific Monday Nights Only special. One medium cheese pizza for $12.99. No promo codes, no minimums. Just place the order after 3 p.m. and you get one medium cheese pizza for $12.99. Toppings can be added, but for the normal prices. Hit the website, punkyspizza.com, for all of your carry-out or delivery needs or to cater your next party. You can also call 312-842-2100. The Scarlotta family will take care of you. Punky's Pizza and Pasta. The 108ers are hosting a live show Saturday, January 28th at 8 p.m. at Reggie's Rock Club, 2105 South State Street in the South Loop. Our guests are going to be Scott Merkin, Dave Williams from Barstool, and Herb Lawrence. Tickets are $20 online. Go to 108.ing/live. That's 108.ing/live to buy tickets. Get tickets now. This event will sell out. We are less than 2 weeks away. This show is also powered by you, loyal 108 supporter. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Feel free to tickle the undercarriage in the process. Like, comment, turn on notifications, and most definitely super chat, because it's how we get paid. It's how we continue to make the content you know and love. Tonight's guest, he's one of your favorite guests on this show and also one of mine. He's an agent of chaos on White Sox Twitter, while also being one of the sharpest minds I know, thinking critically about the team. Alex Rude, welcome back to the Au, my friend.
Thank you for having me. Sorry for the delay.
No, no worries. That's, occasionally the show up 3 minutes before we're going to start backfires because we have a little snafu. Took us a couple minutes to get lined up, but it's all good now. How have you been, my friend? I feel like we haven't even broken bread in a while. I'm ashamed of myself because I know that you're working a lot closer to me, and we need to have lunch, man. Off the mic, we need to be getting together.
Definitely. Things have been good. Just chilling, hanging out with some friends from college. I saw Matt Crawford the other week before you asked. We were at Wrigley Field. That's how Gabriel.
What a shock.
That's how Gabriel got that picture. But things have been good. How about you?
Oh, wonderful, man. Can't complain. I mean, I'm clean shaven right now. I don't want to go into details about why, but I look extra fat on the camera. This is motivation, Alex. I know a while back you had a weight loss journey. I was like, I told Mrs. Beef, I'm too husky right now. I like myself, but I just need to get a little more comfortable and get a little trimmer. So I'm forcing myself to look in the mirror every day and see that double chin. I don't have the protection. The beard is fat protection. You know how that goes. So so I wanted to talk some White Sox with you. We haven't chopped it up since a lot of things have happened in the White Sox world. For me, number one was the hiring of Will Venable. And so I wanted to get your initial reaction to the hire. Considering the situation where Will Venable is kind of a highly touted manager prospect, and he ends up with the White Sox.
Mm-hmm. When I first saw the story, my immediate reaction was I was more shocked that Merkin was the one that broke it than anything. But as far as Will being the hire, my first thought was like the Sox did well for themselves with landing a candidate as well thought of like him. Getz was once again able to go out, sell his vision, and get another talented person in the building, something that has become a theme over the past year plus of his tenure. I'm not sure what the vision that he's selling to everyone is, but it's somehow working. Does the Will Venable hire end up working out? No clue, but the hiring process seemed sound, and they did their due diligence, and the result was landing a well-regarded candidate. So there's been nothing that has stuck out so far that would make me think this will end badly.
Okay, so you Fornelli'd me there. You like the hire, but you don't know if it'll work out. I agree with that. Nothing popped to your mind. Like my Sox summer lately has been all over us with how did we get the hot girl? We had the worst record, and we landed the hot girl at the dance. There's nothing at this point sticking out to you that is like a warning sign? Like, well, how did we get that highly regarded candidate?
Yeah. Thank you for not using the herpes example like he did last week.
That's a passing special. That's right.
But honestly, like I thought about it is like looking at what Will said, like some of his comments, like when he stayed away from the hiring process last year, he was like he thought he was going to get the Texas Rangers job, but things changed. And Bochy's sticking around and seeing the landscape. The White Sox benefited from waiting to fire Griff Hall until this year because they were probably there was like only 2 openings, them and the Marlins. So they literally, there wasn't any other options for him. So he'd rather live in Chicago than Miami.
Can't blame him. I would too. But yeah, that's an interesting point, Alex, in that there is a timing aspect to this because these guys only stay a hot candidate for so long. And why would you want to continue to wait? Like, once you feel like you're ready to handle it, I think I saw an interview with him where he had said before that he felt like he wasn't quite ready, but now he feels like he is ready. Like he got enough of an apprenticeship here in which he could take the job. So it's interesting that, I'm ready now. Here's the jobs that are available. This is the one I like, but I guess this makes more sense to me from that perspective. So I appreciate that. Now, are you at all worried, as the 108ers are, that Grady Sizemore is still hanging around and that he could be a potential fly in the ointment here at all?
No, I think keeping him around is fine. I read your write-up on this, and I thought your breakdown of the offensive coordinator role is great. However, all your thoughts about why it's good he isn't the bench coach was probably a masterclass in overthinking.
That sounds about right.
Undermining Venable probably would make no sense for Grady to do. If he undermines Venable, probably gets out. He won't get hired anywhere else. But if this ends up being successful, people are going to get poached from Venable's staff. So the more likely route for him to get a manager job in the big leagues is for this to all work out. And as far as the point you mentioned about Grady having a relationship with the players, it's like, no offense to them, but they were the worst team in MLB history. Their opinions on who they like more don't really matter.
Very true.
I think the good for Grady not being the bench coach is they brought in someone that as well thought of as McKinnon, my LinkedIn connection. But he's been great.
I love it. And that's a great thought, and I think it's something that hasn't percolated up to White Sox fandom yet. Is Getz is going out and making a lot of these outside hires, and a lot of them are coming pretty well regarded. Venable is a great example, but McKinnon as well. I mean, maybe Ryan Fuller to a lesser degree, but like he's, Banny, all these guys. But at some point, if it succeeds, someone's going to come and get these guys and give them another promotion. Like they're getting their promotions here, but someone's going to come in and grab these guys. And so it's interesting thought. And if you're Grady, you are kind of lining yourself up to be in that position going forward. No one was going to hire you to be the manager after 30-something games with the worst team in history. But maybe 2 years from now, if you've been riding sidecar and this thing's making some improvements and people are talking well about it, it's an interesting point. And I'm curious to see how much of the guys they hired, Alex, are true climbers in that they don't have a long period with the White Sox, even if you see a little bit of success. You think there's anyone in the group that right now where you're like, it wouldn't shock you if in 2 years they take a promotion somewhere?
I think Bannister, just looking at his career, he hasn't really stuck around in one place more than like 3-4 years. So I think probably he is the first one to go. Yeah. But unless they like really get overachieve in the next 2 years, then I could see like his bench coach getting hired. Because I know when I was after he got hired, my guy Robert Murray thought that he's a future manager. So it's like if there's any sort of success, I think the first one to go would probably be him.
Yeah. That makes sense. One last thing on Venable here. What does this successful year look like for the skipper? What's successful year one for Will Venable?
Yeah, I was thinking about this the other week. For me personally, unless this team ends up somehow with a worse record than last year, I won't really be judging him on the wins and losses.
Yep.
It's just not going to be much to work with talent-wise, so it'd be unfair to judge him on that. All I want to see for this first year is competence. Just show me that you're a capable manager that belongs in the role. It's not a high bar to clear, yet it's something the last two managers have struggled with.
That's true.
As long as he doesn't make any in-game decisions so embarrassing that they get national attentions like La Russa did, or as long as he doesn't throw the players under the bus in the media like Pedro did, I think he'll be fine. The only metric I may pay attention to is how they are in one-run games, because in the Pedro era, they were like 30 games under 500, and like nobody else was close to even that. So if there's some improvement there, it's like that's one number to base everything on.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I like your point there because Passon brought that up to us too. Is like, we know Will Venable is a personable guy. He's probably a good guy to have on a young team here, but we haven't seen him in the heat of the fire, having to manage a bullpen, having to manage the maneuvers in the game. And you're right. As long as he doesn't embarrass us, as long as his moves are defensible, and I think that's probably a huge step up from what we've seen recently. So let me get to a couple drinks here. Before we start, I apologize for the delay, everyone, on the live stream. Just it happens from time to time. Trey drops a drink here. Thank you, Trey. Appreciate you, my friend. And then longtime guy, Senor Sock says, Beef, need the facial hair ASAP. Says, love some Alex Rude. See you at Countryside Hooters for our annual MLK meetup. I'm sorry, Senor. I had to get rid of this. I got to give myself a little culture shock. A little. Look how chubby. I mean, it's got a little. It's too much. It's too much for me. I gotta get myself back in shape. So, we mentioned outside hires, Alex. The White Sox now have a director of hitting, Ryan Fuller, and allegedly they're putting in a new hitting program. What's a reasonable expectation for us to see progress in 2025 on something like
Yes. In a perfect world, I'm sure everybody would want him to come in and see almost immediate results in the minors on the level we saw on the pitching side with Bannister, but that's probably not as realistic. I thought a better comparison point to set expectations would be looking at the results of the hitting program he helped implement in Baltimore. The basics of the program was designed around helping players target pitches they can be successful with and limiting their swings to those pitches. So basically, don't swing at terrible pitches, don't chase, hit the balls in the zone, hit it hard. It would probably be a good guess to think that the program for the Sox that he's implementing would be similar. This won't be a perfect comparison for year one, of course, because he was first hired in 2020, so there was no minor league season that year.
Right.
So they had the advantage of not only one spring training, but 2 spring trainings to work on it, as well as the alternate site with the actual prospects that matter before they even saw any game actions. But when they did see game action, though, the program they implemented in Baltimore produced results throughout their system. I was reading something that the Baltimore Sun put together on the hitting program after 2021, detailing some of the improvements. After 1 year, the program led to 26 Baltimore prospects posting an OPS of 800 or better in over 100 plate appearances,
Wow.
doubling their total from 2019. And as an organization, the Orioles full season affiliates had a 37-point increase in OPS year over year. So, like I said, the 2 spring trainings and the alt site probably inflated those numbers. So I think year one, I think it would be fair to expect more modest improvements. So maybe something around like the 10 to 20 point jump in OPS for the White Sox as a whole, because there wasn't much talent there last year. It probably won't be hard to raise that floor.
Pop it a little bit. I love that. I love that metric-based approach. And you're right about we have to look at it as a whole organization. Like, I think a lot of us are going to be very hyper-focused on the major league team. But for this whole thing, we need to be looking, as much as we don't want to trust the prospects anymore, we do need to be looking at what's going on down there and where the incremental improvements come. But on the major league team, Alex, who do you expect to benefit the most from adding a hitting program like this? Dare we say, is Andrew Vaughn finally going to be a guy, or you got someone else?
I think probably it will be incremental just because he still has the swing and miss issues.
Yep.
Probably Luis Robert on the major league side. There's actually somebody else on the minor league side, and when we touch on the Crochet trade later, I think we'll really benefit from it.
Nice.
But I think for big league roster, just thinking about swing and miss, and just Luis Robert and all those pitches that he chases out of the zone.
Yeah, I mean, this last year for Luis Robert, I saw him try to make those adjustments where he was going to lay off more pitches. And what he ended up trading was missing a lot of meatballs in the middle of the plate. And it really, it just sort of, sunk his entire production. I hope that he's able to get it together. And I hope a guy like Ryan Fuller's able to work with him and emphasize this. Yeah. They decided to keep Marcus Thames in place. Do you think that was important as far as continuity and to try to get these guys? Because what I wonder about these hitting programs, Alex, is you have a hitting guru, but these guys have been hitting a certain way their whole lives, and someone has got to get them to buy into the thing. And I wonder how much of making Grady Sizemore the offensive coordinator, keeping Marcus Thames, who was a major league hitter, in there just to try to get these guys to follow them. You think that's part of the calculus here?
Yeah, I think so. Some continuity is nice. It's just, I think in the Pedro era, you saw that there was 2 sets of hire for year one, it was all Pedro guys. And then year 2 was a bunch of replacements. So you saw the Grady's and the Thames coming in. I think they're all Getz guys. So That's probably mainly why they stayed on. I think Getz gave Venable the option to keep him. And I'm sure Venable probably believes in both him and Katz enough to keep him. So might as well keep it for the continuity. But like you said, is a lot of these guys are very stubborn in their ways. And the big league hitting coaches probably don't make too much of an impact. Right. Despite what the average fan thinks.
Right. Yeah, the hitting sucks. Fire that guy. Well, it's not necessarily all his fault.
Fire everybody.
Yes. All right, let's get to this Crochet trade. So that was the entree of the offseason. What do you think the outcome was here? What was the percentile outcome on this return, Alex? What did you think of it when it came through?
It's hard to assign a percentile not knowing exactly what was out there and being being offered. But if I had to guess, like 70 or 80 percentile probably feels right. But if we're being honest, this return was probably as good as it was going to get realistically. I limited it like at the 70, 80th percentile because they didn't get any like top of the line keys like a Meyer, Anthony, or Campbell that would bump it up to that level.
Right.
But that doesn't mean the return wasn't good either. There's no way to really predict how the players will turn out as we saw in the last rebuild. But for now, I think it's fair to view this one as a win for the Sox, which has been rare so far in the Getz era.
At least according to the general public, the industry.
Mm-hmm. As far as the specific of the return, I think Jeff touched on it well last week with y'all. Teal has a realistic chance to be an above-average big leaguer in an important spot at catcher. Montgomery has tremendous upside as well. And like I mentioned previously, he's the exact type of guy that can benefit from Fuller because one of his biggest concerns is the swing and miss issues.
Yeah.
I know Jeff mentioned him falling was due to the injury, but I think it was Kylie McDaniel said that the swing and miss probably played more of a factor in that fall in the draft for Montgomery than the injury. So it's seen as a big concern. So if Fuller can help him with that, that's probably an early victory for Fuller that he can use to keep his job forever, like everybody else with the Sox. And then the final two pieces, my draw probably ends up being a Jag, just a guy, which is a great outcome for a third piece. And Gonzalez at the minimum is a bullpen arm. That's 4 big league guys they got for Crochet. Even like all the returns for like Sale and Eden, like, there was guys in there that didn't even ever make the big leagues. You got 4 higher floor prospects with the chance to become high ceiling prospects.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the same thing, Alex, is like the depth that they got in this deal of like actual real guys. It wasn't just like the last 2 guys who just like, oh, it'll be a miracle if these guys make it to the big leagues. No, I mean, I think Mydrot's probably going to play in 2025. He'll be on the roster at some point. I don't know if he'll start the year with them. And Gonzalez is, yeah, exactly. He's a bullpen arm. I assume we'll see him too, kind of in fairly short order. And so I thought the same thing. And I thought, Getz has been getting kind of hammered for what I've seen trade-wise is trades that seem deeper but don't have the headline talent. And I didn't know if that was a marketplace pushing back on the fact that we're not going to trade high-end prospects. We're not going to give you the absolute best guy and then let you take 2 flyers. We're going to make you go depth. Or if it was just a preference by him to do it. But it seems like that is the path in which he's chosen. And for a team that has lacked sufficient depth, especially through the last group, I mean, I don't mind it, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. I think we talked about it at the deadline is like teams aren't going to be willing to like give up those big top prospects as they once did back in 2016. Even Dombrowski now is becoming somewhat of a prospect hugger, which is totally out of character for him. It's just like the times are changing and the league is like changing how they view certain things. And like trading top prospects isn't the thing as it once was.
Yeah, it's out of favor. You're right. And it hurts my heart that a guy like Dombrowski is not willing to hurl his top prospects and make a gigantic splash in a trade because it's fun watching the trades go by, even though the White Sox aren't going to be the recipient of any of those guys. What was your favorite acquisition so far of the offseason? Outside of Crochet, what have you liked that the White Sox have done in this offseason, or let's say from maybe even from the middle of the season on, just kind of like in the Getz regime here?
Yeah, my favorite thing they've done this offseason isn't even a free agent signing or a trade. It's the complete revamping of the international scouting department. I'll start with that loser Marco Patti. He didn't do anything worthy of being employed for as long as he was. When he was fired, I believe it was like Francis Romero or whatever his name is. He tweeted out something like some propaganda listing out guys that Patti signed. The list was Yolki Cespedes, Oscar Colas, and Jorge Vera. Those were the highlights of his tenure. Those were the highlights. A group that combined for -1 F4. We provided more to the White Sox by not being Oscar Colas. I have no clue what to think of his replacement, Keller, yet, but he's not Patti. So it's probably not going to be hard for him to top Patti's tenure at all. on top of the hate for Petty, they're actually building an academy in the Dominican to find
Yeah.
like every other team in the league. It blows my mind that they've been operating without one for this long. Every other team was out signing Dominican teenagers while Petty was signing Cubans old enough to drink. I'm glad that era is over, to say the least.
It is amazing because when you look at the percentage of major leaguers that are Dominican, it's like, how are you not drawing from that pool down there? What are you doing? Like, and I don't think it's especially cost prohibitive. I'm going to be honest, compared to signing major league free agents or doing anything else. So it's very weird that Jerry kind of never jumped on it. Never jumped on the bandwagon there. It's bizarre.
So yeah, that seems to be like one of the bigger takeaways from the Getz era so far. It's like he understands who his boss is, unlike the previous two, and it's like he needs to find the market efficiencies to win with that said boss that the Khan and Kenny weren't ever able to figure out while they were throwing money at relievers.
Right. Now, I love this choice, Alex, but this is one of these things where it's going to take us 5 or 6 years before we see the fruits of changing this over because, I mean, we'll start seeing differences in signing patterns in a couple of years, I would think, because right now you're probably just starting to switch over to the new regime's people that they're recruiting, and those kids are probably 14 years old or whatever.
Yeah,
but for it to even trickle all the way up, it's going to take some time. But I mean, you're right. The last regime, like who even like Yolmer Sanchez, who even made it to the majors that was like decent.
Wait, Larry was a trade, so not even him.
Yeah, right, exactly. Like it's like no one. Right? They didn't get anyone to the majors.
Yeah,
I mean,
like,
you can count Luis Robert, I guess, and maybe there was some relationships there, but it was also you're the highest bidder. Like if you give him give $60 million with the penalties, well, you get him. And the same thing with Jose when they got Jose Abreu.
Yeah,
if you give the most money, you get him. Like it's a different thing here.
Yeah, and like for Abreu, they had Kenny down there scouting him, and not Patty.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. That's right. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, that's a great choice. I love that choice. Last thing on our initial White Sox talk. How many wins? I'm asking all of our guests this. How many wins will make this White Sox season fun for you? I had Pinols on last week. He said 65. Where are you at, Alex, with this team?
Tying back to my earlier answer on Venable, I personally don't have any specific number on my mind yet. All I ask is just don't be embarrassing. But for the sake of your overbet, let's just go with 50.
Okay. It will be a good year for me, too, if it gets to at least 50. I absolutely appreciate that. All right. Let's move on to something else, something a little more fun. I, myself, and to a lesser degree, Teresi, has given you a lot of shit over the last few years about Jimmy Lambert. And the reason why is because, we come on and we do these shows and shit, but we also hang on the ballpark together and we DM each other about White Sox stuff. And you were big on your thought that the White Sox should have traded Jimmy Lambert. This is before the injury. He had a nice year. You were like, they should flip him immediately. And I was like, who the fuck is Jimmy Lambert to get flipped? And then more and more as we're watching the marketplace go, the kind of middle relievers that pitch well, they can get flipped for some quality depth in the minors. And like as an example, the White Sox last year flipped Tanner Banks and got a totally reasonable prospect that's like right smack dab in the middle of their farm ranking. So I guess my question for you is, who are the 2025 Jimmy Lamberts that we should be looking out for, Alex, that maybe potentially could turn into something that helps the White Sox with the trade later on?
MLB GMs love nothing more than relievers that are cheap and have options. That was the basis of the whole theory. Unfortunate that the only example the Sox had at the time was Lambert. But onto your question, probably in like the 2-3 years of doing these, this is probably one of the toughest questions you've ever asked me, because looking at the bullpen and like all their numbers and projections, there's not a lot to be optimistic about, to put it kindly. I think Zimbrowski in like his Zips write-up today, he said on the Sox, this bullpen was the worst bullpen that he's ever projected in 20 plus years of doing it. Yes. Honestly, that's super impressive. As long as he's been doing that, to be that bad, it's kind of impressive.
When he put the graphic out there of like just before the article came out and it had the minus 1.6 WAR for the bullpen, someone asked, "Is that a dash or a minus sign?" It's like, yeah, you're not expecting that to come rolling out of there. It's beautiful.
Yeah. As far as names, I'll probably just go with Perlander Baroa, because the stuff is good on the fastball and slider. He just needs to hone in the command. he figures out the command, I think the upside is there to flip him for a solid return. In the minors, I'll add in Peyton Paulette because he seemed to really figure things out once he got moved to the bullpen in the minors last year.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he'll get a shot in the big league bullpen at some point, but that's more for next offseason or 2026 deadline.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great choice. I've been thinking a little bit about Peyton Paulette because they even sent him to Arizona Fall League just to get an additional look. So it's kind of interesting. Like, I assume they're not going to pivot back to being a starter there. He was so good out of the bullpen. Just why not just let him, rip it for, for 15, 20 pitches 3 times a week?
Yeah.
It's kind of might be his calling, if you will. No love for the guys that saved me last year in the steak dinner bet, Frazier Ellard or Gus Varland or any of those guys.
I'll need to see it to believe it again.
One good September is not enough. You're not something like that. All right. Last thing before we get out of here. Did you manifest Martin Perez signing with the White Sox because you asked Robert Murray about it? Is this on you?
It depends. If he's good, give me all the credit. If he sucks, I had nothing to do with it. That's what MS did with Bam, right?
Paul DeYoung as well.
But in all seriousness, I don't think the timing on that could be even any funnier. Backstory for everybody else. Robert was doing a Q&A last week. I asked him if the Sox were going to add another starter. I mainly asked because I was curious because of your bet you had with Sean about the Andrew Vaughn arbitration projections.
Yeah.
And he said he thought so. The next day during his show, he has the Perez news break in the middle of it. And when talking about the signing, he mentioned something along the lines of, I know people have been asking me if they were going to make a move like this. So if you were curious on who he could have possibly been referring to when he says people were asking him about the White Sox, it's me. I'm people.
Yes, I love it. Yeah, I mean, and truth be told, Martin Perez is like my one shot. So I have a bet with Sean Anderson. Sean and I will go back and forth on stuff occasionally. And I said, well, let's bet on this. And because he said the White Sox aren't going to spend any money on any free agents. They're not signing anyone of any, consequence dollar amount. I said, well, let's bet on it. He goes, Beef, I ain't got the money to bet a steak dinner bet with you. I said, well, let's bet lunch then. We'll go right down the street from the studios, the CHGO studios. We'll go to the Billy Goat right there on Madison. And he's like, fine. And so we set the bar at Andrew Vaughn's arbitration salary was going to be, will the White Sox sign a free agent above that number? I thought that they would. And when the Perez thing came through, Alex, I thought, here we go. But then I was thinking in the back of my mind, Gat's been getting deals on these ones lately. Like, I feel like he overpaid on the outset with the Paul DeYoung. But since then, everyone's like, yeah, I'll come and play. Well, I'll take a little bit less and come play with you guys. And so I was thinking like, fuck, we're not going to make it here. And it didn't even come close, man. Even you throw the buyout in there, it doesn't make it.
No, yeah, Sean and I had the same conversation over text last week when the news breaks, just waiting for like the numbers. Like, I told him, like, unless Getz is a master negotiator, he's like, you're probably losing this bet. It's like, then it comes in later. He was making like $3.5 million. I was like,
I couldn't believe it. Now I gotta hope they sign another starter, which they probably won't. I mean, I think they're probably gonna go with what they got. They got a Rule 5 guy in there. They signed Bryce Wilson. I think and then Perez is gonna be it. But your guy, Robert Murray, now you turned me on to Robert Murray. I've been watching more of the live streams during work. There's nothing better than 30 minutes of just like MLB gossip and like right during the day and at work. I'll take a little break. I'll have him on the background and work on a spreadsheet. But my question for you is Robert passing up the legendary Ken Rosenthal in the realm of Scoops News? Because Rosenthal didn't break shit this offseason. I saw him break one fucking thing. And Robert's out there breaking a ton of fucking things, and some of them are small, and they're just arbitraries or whatever. But, like, I got alerts on him. I ain't got no alerts on Ken Rosenthal anymore. What's going on here?
Yeah, it's not necessarily a knock on Ken, but I think so. I hate to say it, but Ken might be washed at this point. I've seen people on MLB Twitter just starting to call him sources confirmed man because, like you said, he's everything. Whenever there's a move, he's like, just sources confirmed whoever broke its report. It's like he no longer gets any like breaking news. I think he's still feeling the effects of getting burned at the deadline a few years ago when he said Scherzer and Turner were going to the Padres, and they obviously ended up with the Dodgers. So he's just had PTSD since then. So, but ever since then, it's been downhill. I will add though, in Ken's defense, even a washed Ken is way better than John Morosi, aka the Yapper.
Oh, you're right. Maybe he did get burned. He's a little gun shy now. Unlike John Heyman, who was not arson judge, that did not stop that motherfucker. He ain't gun shy. He just kept going and pushing right through. So, hey, they're just different people. Maybe they're
How
different
many
people.
times Bob has been wrong? He just powers through it.
Exactly. Bob gives no fucks. He's gonna keep flinging, baby. Keep tweeting that shit out there. Doesn't
Bob's
matter.
in his own tier of MLB reporters for being the most unintentionally hilarious guy to ever do it. That picture of him and Jordan Miller at White Sox spring training for 2 years ago, probably one of my favorite pictures of all time.
Absolutely great. Well, Alex, thanks for providing your insight on Will Venable, Ryan Fuller, the Garrett Crochet trade return, White Sox bullpen, and Robert Murray. Remember, we ain't trying to be right on the show. We're just trying to understand. Anything you want to plug before you go?
Gabriel's GoFundMe. To the donate, everybody.
Take care, my friend. Good seeing you. That was Alex Rosas. Genuinely terrific, as always. Next week's guest, I'm going to have a brand new guest on here. I'm going to have Besnick, the artist formerly known as Sox Insane from Sox on Tap. I've been a big fan of his work for a while, including his willingness to look like Ted Kaczynski in public. And so he's going to come on here. That show will start at 7 o'clock. Next week, 7 o'clock. So it's going to be a little different timing. I'm not going to bump into my good friends, the Chicago Sports Bums, but we're going to start a little later than the normal 6 p.m. I want to thank all of first thanks to Punky's Pizza and Pasta, of course, and all the one-way fans up in the YouTube comments. Thanks for smashing the like button, comments, and of course, drinks and tips. We're going to see you on Thursday for the One Way Podcast. Bye, and I love all of you.